Last week, I thought I knew exactly what this video was going to be. I was going to finish digging the trenches, install the irrigation, and possibly get mulch ordered. Then it rained. And then it rained again. Between storms, I was able to make a little progress. I got part of the main line ran from the hose bib out to the garden, but at some point it stopped making sense to fight the weather. So I decided to work on another part of the project instead. One that, hopefully, will make managing this garden just a little easier in the long run. It rained basically all morning. We have a lot more forecasted for the afternoon, so I'm just going to do a walk around and basically just see if there's any damage. Looking at the wind there, I don't think there is. You know, I worked in big tech for a period of time and I was less than thrilled with it, but I've kind of found this interesting middle ground where I can work with my hands and do something tangible and also integrate the interesting aspects of technology that I care about. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is basically reduce the mental and the physical burden of managing this land and managing my animals. And so I've been building somewhat of a system that will help me do that. And the component that I'm working on now is the irrigation controller. One of the issues that I've dealt with in the past with electronics and some of this automation stuff is that the range is pretty poor. A lot of it depends on Wi-Fi or other kind of low distance communication. And I'm too far away to be able to use that. I've built a handful of these devices already. Some of them are simpler, some of them are a little bit more complex. But one of the ones that I've built is a scale. And the scale goes underneath my chicken food and it tells me basically when it's out. And right now it's out. So this is basically what it is. It's a bathroom scale that I bought at Goodwill, and I disassembled it and I reused its parts and I integrated it with this device that I built. And so whenever this treacle feeder gets too low, and I can set that threshold, but whenever it gets low, I get an alert telling me that it's out of food. This treacle feeder holds about 25 to 30 pounds of food, and I really only keep like a dozen hens and a rooster, and so they don't go through it super fast. It's maybe, you know, once a week or once every week and a half I need to fill it up, but it's long enough for me to kind of not remember to do it. Another device that I have is I have a soil moisture sensor, which is right here. I'll give you a close-up in a second, but I have this little sensor that tells me how wet the soil is or how dry the soil is. And I can hook this up to this irrigation controller that I'm building, and so I can time my watering from when the soil actually needs it. This is one of those classic things that any hobbyist would build kind of right off the bat because there's so many tutorials about it. But the nice thing about this one that I've built is that it is run off of a battery. It's super low power, and the battery should last a long time, and it's fully encapsulated inside of a kind of, I don't know, a capsule that I 3D printed. And so it appears to be waterproof, at least for the time being. I can make it better, but you know. But here, let me give you a close-up. So you can see it kind of just sticks in the ground there. And again, it just sends out a little piece of data every 30 minutes, telling my kind of central system, my hub as I call it, how much moisture content is in the soil. For most of the devices that I've built, I don't need a big battery. I just use kind of I think it's a CR123 battery, and it's super compact. It's a little like stubby guy and it's super compact. But the valves for these garden beds require a significant amount of current that I can't get out of a basic battery, at least not easily. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put that battery in the solar charger either here or possibly over here and face it south, which is basically like that direction there. And it should keep my device running forever, and the valves running forever as well. And so the way that these devices work is that they're actually quite dumb, the actual individual devices. They don't really do anything unless they're told to do something, or the only thing that they do is emit some sort of metric. There's not a whole lot of logic that goes into those devices. All of the logic lives on a Raspberry Pi that is sitting in my house and is connected to the internet. And it's a bit silly because, you know, when you think about homesteading or you think about gardening, it's a very much a hands-on task or a hands-on hobby or whatever you want to call it, where you try to escape this this society of technology or this this over optimization to do something physical, to do something tangible, to get your hands in dirt. And I do really like that, but I also kind of like working with computers. I mean, I don't, but I do in a very weird way. I don't really know how to explain it because they're kind of at odds with each other. But this is just one of the things that I'm kind of interested in, one of the things that I find myself coming back to over and over again. And so I kind of said, well, I might as well like give it a shot. Let's see how far we can take this. I think what I'm going to focus on, since it's so wet and we're supposed to get more rain today and we're supposed to, I think, get more rain tomorrow and the rest of the week, is I'm going to try to nail down the irrigation controller's enclosure, kind of the box that it's going to go on. And so the irrigation controller, the functionality of it will evolve over time, but for the time being, there's basically two ways to activate it. You can either press a button on the actual controller, the enclosure, which will turn a valve on, or you can turn it on through your phone. And I guess the third way is you can turn it on through some piece of data that you get from a sensor. So you can turn it on when the moisture in the bed is too low, or when the temperatures are too high, or whatever. My plan ultimately is to also hook it up with the weather, like a feed that you get from like the National Weather Service or something. So it can kind of understand what the forecast is going to be, and you can kind of make determinations based off of that. And then also a calendar or like a schedule. That is just a bunch of programming work, and basically the way that my life works is in the winter I do a lot of programming work, and in the summer I do a lot of outdoor work. And so right now it's just really focused, I'm just really focused on integrating it into my property, and then over time I can build out its functionality. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm putting it into the garden. I'm going to print its enclosure, and I'm going to get it set up so that I can incrementally add features to it. All right, so this is the enclosure that I printed. It is not fancy by any means. It's pretty straightforward. It's effectively just a square. These things aren't like hard to print. They're not hard to design. The difficulty is how long they take. This takes about 4.5 to 5 hours to print, and so I basically do it overnight. The electronics are going to sit inside of this box. There's not a lot to it. They'll basically just kind of lay on these pedestals that I have built on the inside. Now on the bottom of this box, there are two holes. One of the holes is going to be for conduit, which will hold the wires that run to the valves. And then there is a punch out for the wire that's running from the battery. And if I tip it on the side, I hope you can see this, but there's this flat part, and then there is this like raised edge. And between the flat part and the raised edge is kind of this like ditch. And my idea is to have an O-ring that wraps around this box and kind of fits into that ditch. And so the lid will just kind of press onto it and compress the O-ring, hopefully making it watertight. The lid looks very similar to the body, of course. And on the back side, you can see I have these ridges such that it fits nicely on the body. In the front, I have these two sets of holes. This top set is going to be for the buttons, and this bottom set is going to be for the LED indicators. The electronics are quite bulky for this controller, but they just fit snugly in this box. And then, as I said, there's pedestals, which I will just kind of fasten the electronics to make sure that they are snug. Now, securing the lid is going to be interesting. I've never done this before. So if you look around the edges, you'll see that I have these holes, and these are effectively just pilot holes that these threaded inserts are going to melt into. So here's what they look like. I hope you can see it on camera, but there are grooves or like ridges around the edge. And these are what kind of lock it to the plastic when you melt it, so that it doesn't twist or pull out or move, basically. And so it's pretty straightforward. You just take one of these inserts, get it hot, and press it in. They go in really easily. You don't need to force it, maybe just a little bit of pressure until the head is either flat with your surface or just below it. Now this part is super frustrating. I bought this little chip off of Amazon that drops voltages from 12 volts to 3.3 volts. And normally when you buy these, they're set up for a breadboard, and breadboards have a very specific pitch between the holes. And this one doesn't. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to mount this, because my original idea of mounting it to the breadboard it's just not going to work. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to solder leads directly to it, and then I will solder it directly to my main board, or kind of where my microcontroller is. I think that this is a good fix for now. I wish I could plug it in and unplug it, but this is gonna have to do. And I don't have a great way to mount these either, so I think what I'm going to do is just leave them dangling for now, and then I will hot glue them to the side of the enclosure. That should give them enough support to not rattle around and cause a short, but that's the idea. The LEDs go in pretty easily. You just feed them through the hole, and then on the back side there will be a nut. Now there's a gasket between the LED and the enclosure, and so when you tighten down that nut, it should compress that gasket and create a watertight seal. The buttons work much the same way, where you just shove them through the hole, and then there's a nut on the back side that you just tighten down. So let's go ahead and get this thing mounted. All I'm doing here is I'm just plugging in the buttons and the LEDs to the respective holders. So with all these wires in, we can go ahead and close this up. Basically, I'm just going to press it into place, and then I'm just going to secure it with a few screws for now. All right, this is the moment of truth. I'm going to turn the lights off just so we can see that LED shine. Now when I press this button, the LED should come on, indicating that the valve is on. All right, let me try that again. All right, of course, something's not working. I don't know what it is. It's 1 o'clock. I'm going to bed. I'll do this tomorrow. Okay, I figured it out. It has nothing to do with the electronics. It has nothing to do with the enclosure. And it has everything to do with me not turning on my computer. So let's press this button again. And there we go. All right, nice. Let's turn it off. All right, nice. Let's try another. Nice. One more. That's expected. Turn this off. This should come on. All right, nice. Yes, it's working. All right, this is incredible. Okay, cool. This is done, which means I can hopefully get back outside because I don't want to be inside anymore.